Have you ever felt like the ground beneath you is shifting? Slowly, almost quietly, until suddenly you are not sure where you stand? Like a familiar world has changed overnight, and you are left trying to find your way in the dark? That was me. A woman who thought she knew her family, her place, her life, until one night, everything changed. I was made to sleep on the couch in my own home. The daughter I loved had turned away from me. The dog I cherished became my only company. But in that silence, in that loneliness, something unexpected happened. I found a strength I did not know I had, a quiet power that helped me begin again. Before we jump back in, tell me where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Laura. I am 54 years old. I live in a quiet neighborhood, in a house with white shutters and a little garden in the back. It is not a big house, but it is filled with memories. Memories of birthday cakes, Christmas mornings, and soft music playing on Sunday afternoons. My life, as many would say, is calm. Some might even call it peaceful. Every morning I wake up early. I make myself a cup of tea. I like it strong, with a little milk and no sugar. I sit by the window and listen to the birds outside. The world is still sleepy at that hour, and I enjoy the silence. It is my favorite part of the day. After breakfast, I usually take a walk with my dog, Winston. He is a golden retriever, 12 years old, and full of love. He walks slowly now, but his tail still wags with joy when he sees a squirrel. He has been with me through everything, through change, through heartache, through healing. My daughter Emily lives with me. She is 26. She moved back home after college. At first, she only planned to stay for a few months. But 1 month turned into 2, and 2 months turned into a year. She is still here. I do not mind. I love her. She is my only child. When she was small, she had the brightest smile. She used to run around the house with ribbons in her hair and paint on her hands. She would tell me stories about her dreams. Sometimes she would fall asleep with her head on my lap, holding onto my arm as if she never wanted to let go. Now, she is grown. She wears dark jeans, high boots, and a serious face. She spends hours on her laptop, writing emails and doing video calls. She is building her career. She is strong and smart. But sometimes, I wonder if she is happy. We do not talk as much as we used to. Still, I try. I cook dinner most nights. I ask her how her day was. Sometimes she answers with a smile. Other times, she just nods and says she is tired. I understand. Life can be heavy. I remember being her age. The pressure, the confusion, the fear of not being enough. My days are quiet. I clean the house. I read books. I visit the grocery store. I call my sister on Wednesdays. I water the plants. Life is simple now, and in some ways, that is a blessing. I have known storms. I have known loss, so I do not take peace for granted. But lately, I have felt something shift, something small, like a cold breeze passing through a closed room. Emily has been more distant. Her tone has changed, her eyes too. There is a sharpness there that was not there before. A kind of impatience. She sighs when I ask questions. She rolls her eyes when I remind her to lock the back door. It is not what she says. It is how she says it. I try not to take it personally. Maybe she is stressed. Maybe it is work. Maybe she just needs space. Still, it hurts. I have always tried to be a good mother. I worked hard to give her everything she needed. I stayed up late to help with school projects. I made costumes for her plays. I packed her lunch every morning. Even now, I fold her laundry and leave it on her bed. But things are not the same. I know children grow up. I know they become their own people. But sometimes I wonder if I am invisible in my own home. Winston sees me. He always sees me. At night, when I sit on the couch with my tea, he rests his head on my feet. He looks up at me with those gentle brown eyes, and I feel seen. I feel needed, loved. I used to believe that family always sticks together, that love means staying close. But the older I get, the more I see that love also means letting go, even when it hurts. This house, this life, it may seem small to someone looking in, but to me it is full of stories, full of heart. And yet, I cannot ignore what I feel. That cold breeze again. That silence at the dinner table. That tightness in my chest when she closes her door without saying goodnight. Maybe it is nothing. Maybe it will pass. Still, I sit quietly and listen. To the air. To the space between us. Because something feels strange. It started with something small. Something I almost missed. One morning, Emily walked into the kitchen and looked around like she was searching for something. Her eyes landed on the table, where I had laid out breakfast, 2 slices of toast, soft-boiled eggs, and a little bowl of fruit, just how she used to like it. She blinked, then sighed. "You do not need to do this every day," she said, her voice flat. I smiled, trying to keep it light. "It is no trouble at all. I like making breakfast." She picked up a piece of toast and took a small bite. "You do not have to treat me like a child, Mom." I froze for a second. That word, child, cut deeper than I expected. I looked down at the tea in my cup and forced a small laugh. "I did not mean to. I just thought it would be nice." She shrugged, not looking at me. I am not 10 years old anymore. And just like that, the room felt colder. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone has off days. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe work had been hard. But still, that tone stayed in my ears long after she left the kitchen. Later that day, I decided to dust the bookshelf in the living room. It is something I do every week, but this time I paused to look at the old photo frames. There was one of Emily, about 8 years old, standing in the backyard with a popsicle in her hand and grass stains on her knees. She was smiling wide, missing 2 front teeth. That photo used to make me smile, but today it made my heart ache because I did not know how to get back to that version of her. I did not know when the space between us became so wide. That afternoon, I called my sister Nancy. She lives 3 hours away, but always knows when something is wrong. "You sound quiet," she said, after I had told her about my day. I hesitated. Emily has been different, not in a big way, just little things. She seems impatient, distant. Nancy was silent for a moment. Then she said gently, "Maybe she is trying to pull away." I frowned. "But why?" "She lives here. I help her. I do everything I can." "I know," Nancy said softly, But sometimes when people feel overwhelmed, they push away the ones who care the most. I sat on the couch with Winston lying beside me, and I thought about her words. I looked at the way the light from the window hit the floor. I listened to the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. That night, at dinner, I tried again. I was thinking, I said, placing the casserole on the table. Maybe this weekend we could go out, just the two of us. Maybe a little brunch, like we used to? Emily looked at her phone and then at me. I have plans. Oh, I said, hiding the sting in my voice. Maybe next weekend? She did not answer right away. She was already looking at her messages. I forced a smile. No rush. Just let me know. She nodded without looking up. After dinner, I washed the dishes alone. I did not mind. The warm water helped. It gave me something to do with my hands while my mind wandered. Later, I passed by her room. The door was half open. I could hear her laughing on a video call, her voice light and full of energy. That was the moment I realized she does still have warmth in her, just not for me. Not lately. That night I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to Winston's breathing beside my bed. His steady rhythm usually calms me, but not tonight. There was something shifting in our home, something quiet but heavy, and I could feel it moving between us. A silence, a space, a coldness I did not understand. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself. I could feel something changing. I woke up the next morning with a strange feeling in my chest. It was not pain. It was not fear. It was something softer, but just as strong. A kind of heaviness, like carrying a bag full of invisible things. Things I could not name. I sat at the edge of my bed, rubbing Winston's ears as he looked up at me. His eyes were calm, steady, familiar. Mine were not. I went to the kitchen to make tea. The kettle whistled gently. The sound used to comfort me, but now it seemed far away, like it belonged to someone else's home. As I poured the tea into my favorite cup, I looked around the kitchen, at the curtains I sewed by hand, the old clock above the stove, the tiny photo of Emily taped to the fridge. She must have been 6 or 7 in that picture. She was laughing, her cheeks round and full of life. I felt my throat tighten. When did it get so hard to talk to her? I remembered a time when Emily would follow me around the house, telling me everything. What happened at school, what her friends said at lunch, what dream she had the night before. Her voice used to fill the rooms like music. Now, I barely heard. She came into the kitchen around 10, already dressed. I smiled at her. Good morning, she nodded. Morning. I waited. I thought maybe she would say something more, but she walked straight to the fridge, took out a yogurt, and leaned against the counter. Do you want some toast? I asked gently. No, thanks. I'm in a hurry. Oh, where are you going? She hesitated. Just out. I nodded. All right. Be safe. She grabbed her keys and left without another word. I stood there, holding my teacup, unsure of what just happened. It was not a fight. It was not unkind. But it still hurt. There was a time when I could read her like a book. Now, I felt like I was holding a page in a language I had forgotten. I spent the afternoon cleaning the hallway closet, something I had put off for months. It helped to keep busy. It helped to focus on something I could fix. I found an old shoebox full of Emily's drawings, crayon hearts, stick figure families. One picture showed me, her, and Winston in front of our house, all holding hands. I smiled. Then I felt tears pressing behind my eyes. I sat on the floor and whispered, "Where did we go?" I wanted to believe that everything was fine, that she was just busy, that she still loved me deep down. But my heart was not so sure. That evening, she came home and went straight to her room. No hello, no, "How was your day?" I stood outside her door for a moment. My hand lifted as if I might knock, but I let it fall. Instead, I walked outside with Winston and sat on the porch. The sky was painted in soft shades of purple and orange. The wind was cool. The street was quiet. I used to love this time of day. The world felt soft, gentle. But now, even the silence made me feel alone. I started to ask myself questions I did not want to ask. Did I do something wrong? Did I push her too hard? Was I too soft? Was I too much? Not enough? I did not have the answers. All I knew was that something between us had changed, and I did not understand why. Later that night, I stood by the window and looked at the stars. One of them blinked gently in the sky, like a slow heartbeat. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Please let this be just a phase. Please let her come back to me." Because right now I felt confused. And confusion is its own kind of loneliness. The next few days passed slowly. Emily stayed busy. She went out often. She came home late. Sometimes I heard her laughing on the phone. Other times she walked right past me like I was a ghost in my own home. I told myself not to take it personally. I reminded myself she was an adult now. Grown-up children need space. That is what everyone says, but it still hurt. One evening, I made her favorite dinner, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. I even baked a little apple tart. When she came through the door, I greeted her with a smile. "I made dinner. I thought we could eat together." She looked surprised. "Oh, I already ate with friends." I nodded slowly. "All right, maybe later." "I am really tired," she said, setting down her bag. "I think I am just going to shower and rest." I stood there in the kitchen, holding 2 plates, the food still warm. I wanted to cry, but I did not. I packed 1 plate and left it in the fridge. Then I sat down with Winston and ate quietly by myself. That night, something in me softened. Or maybe it cracked. I could not tell. I went outside and sat on the back steps with a blanket around my shoulders. The moon was high and full. The air was still. I thought about when she was little, when she used to crawl into my lap and say, "Tell me a story, Mommy." I always told her the same one, about the brave little girl who saved a whole village by being kind. Emily used to believe in kindness. I wondered if she still did. Suddenly, the door behind me creaked open. Emily stepped outside. I looked up, surprised. "Could not sleep?" She shook her head. "Too much on my mind." She sat down, beside me, just close enough to feel her warmth. We stayed quiet for a while. Then she spoke, almost in a whisper. "I know I have been distant." My heart beat a little faster. "Yes," I said gently. "I have noticed." "I am sorry," she said. "Things have been complicated." I wanted to ask what she meant, but I was afraid of pushing too hard, so instead I said, "You can tell me anything, Emily. You know that, right?" She nodded slowly. "I know. I just need time." I looked at her face, the way the moonlight softened her features. For a moment, she looked like my little girl again. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust that she would come back to me, that whatever wall had risen between us would fall, piece by piece. So I took a deep breath and said, "Take the time you need. I am here. I always will be." She turned to me, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes, something close to tears. Then she stood up and said, "Good night, Mom." "Good night," I whispered as she went inside. I stayed out there a while longer, looking up at the stars. Something inside me wanted to hold on, to hope, to trust, even if I was not sure why. The next morning started like any other. I fed Winston, made my tea, and opened the windows to let in the spring air. The sunlight was warm, but my chest still felt cold. I could hear Emily in her room, moving around, talking on the phone. Her voice was low, but something about her tone made me pause. It was not the words, I could not hear them clearly. It was the way she spoke. Fast, sharp, nervous. I tried not to listen, but a mother always notices. Later that day, my friend Carol called. We had not spoken in a few weeks. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. I laughed, but it came out thin. "I am fine, just the usual. Emily is home for a while." Carol went quiet for a second. Then she said, "I saw Emily last week." My heart jumped. "Oh? Where?" "She was at the cafe on 5th, with a man. They looked serious." I held the phone tighter. "What kind of serious?" Carol hesitated. "Honestly, he looked older, much older, not just in years, in energy. He gave me a strange feeling." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Did she see you?" "I do not think so. I almost said hello, but something told me not to." I thanked her for calling, then sat in silence for a long time after we hung up. Something inside me twisted. A warning. A whisper in my gut. That evening, I asked Emily, as casually as I could, "Did you go out with anyone last week?" She shrugged. "I do not remember. Probably. Why?" "I just wondered," I said. She looked at me, then away. "I have friends. I am allowed to have a life, Mom." "I know," I replied. "Of course you are." But her reaction stayed with me. The way her body stiffened. The way her eyes darted to the side. I tried to sleep that night, but my thoughts spun in circles. Carol's voice kept echoing in my mind. He gave me a strange feeling. And suddenly, I felt something I had not felt in years. Fear. Not loud, screaming fear, but quiet, creeping. A slow chill rising up my spine. I wanted to believe Emily was just going through a phase, that she was making her own choices and learning like all young people do. But a mother knows, and I could feel something was not right. Somewhere between the silence and her sharp answers, something was hiding. A part of me did not want to know, but another part was already listening, because deep down I had heard it, a warning. The next morning, I told myself to stop overthinking. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the kettle as it came to a boil. The sound of the bubbling water was loud in the quiet room. Winston sat at my feet, his big eyes watching me. I reached down and scratched behind his ears. "I am fine," I said out loud, trying to believe it. "Everything is fine." But it did not feel fine. Emily came downstairs a few minutes later. She was dressed nicely, too nicely for a regular day at home. Her makeup was light but polished, and her hair looked freshly styled. "Going somewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She opened the fridge and took out a bottle of water. "Just out for a bit." "With friends?" She paused. "Sort of. I am meeting someone to talk about an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" "Something personal, Mom." Her tone was sharp. "I will tell you if it becomes something serious." I smiled weakly. "All right." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Please do not start asking 100 questions. I just need a little space, okay?" I nodded. Of course. But after she left, I stood there by the window, watching her walk down the driveway and into a car I did not recognize. The driver was a man. I could only see the side of his face. Gray hair, dark glasses. He did not get out to greet her. She just opened the door and got in quickly. Something in my stomach turned. I told myself not to make assumptions. I reminded myself that Emily was a grown woman, capable of making her own decisions. Maybe she was working on something exciting. Maybe this man was just a mentor or a client or anything normal. But still, that feeling crept back in, that soft, persistent worry. I tried to distract myself. I watered the plants. I cleaned out the pantry. I walked Winston for over an hour. I even started reading one of the old novels I kept meaning to finish, but nothing worked. I kept thinking of that phone call with Carol, of the strange man in the cafe, of the car in the driveway, of Emily's distant tone. I remembered the way she used to talk to me, the way she would sit at the kitchen table and tell me every detail of her day, her friends, her fears, her dreams. Now I barely knew where she, when or who she was with. Later that afternoon, I called Carol again. "Maybe I am being dramatic," I said, pacing around the living room. "Maybe I just miss how close we used to be." Carol was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You are not being dramatic. You are being a mother." I sat down on the couch, feeling a deep ache settle into my chest. "Do you think I should talk to her again?" I asked. Carol sighed. "If you do, be careful. If she is hiding something, she might push you away more. Sometimes they need to figure things out on their own. But what if she is in trouble? Then you stay close. Not by pushing, just by being there. So when the moment comes, she knows where to turn." I sat with those words for a long time after we hung up. That evening, I made a simple dinner. I waited for Emily to come home. She arrived just before sunset. She looked tired, her face pale. She went straight to her room without saying much. At one point, I passed by her door. It was closed. I could hear her talking on the phone again. The same low, nervous tone. I stood there, frozen. I did not want to become someone who listened at doors, but I could not help it. I leaned in slightly, just enough to hear a few words. "I told you I need more time." She's starting to notice my Breath caught. I stepped back quickly, feeling ashamed. I walked away and returned to the kitchen. I did not know what "she is starting to notice" meant, but I knew it was about me. That night, I sat in the living room with Winston curled up beside me. I stared at the blank television screen, lost in thought. I thought about all the things I wanted to say. Emily, are you safe? Are you being honest with me? Do you trust me? Do you still need me? But I said nothing. I told myself again and again, do not make a scene, do not accuse, do not push. She will come to you when she is ready. She is just going through something. She is an adult now. I told myself all of these things, again and again and again. But deep in my heart, something else whispered, you already know something is wrong. You just do not want to see it. The next few days passed slowly, but heavily. Every small moment seemed to carry extra weight. Emily came and went as she pleased. She spoke less, smiled less, and when she did smile, it never quite reached her eyes. I began to notice the way she looked at me. It was not the same. She used to look at me with warmth, sometimes with playful sarcasm, sometimes with quiet understanding. We had shared glances that said more than words ever could, a kind of mother-daughter language built over years of small joys and mutual care. But now, her eyes felt guarded, careful, like she was watching me the way someone watches a ticking clock, aware of time running out or something waiting to break. One morning we crossed paths in the hallway. She was on her way out again, dressed in a crisp beige coat I had never seen before. I tried to catch her eye. You look nice today. She looked up at me briefly. Thanks. Her eyes flicked away almost immediately. It was a small moment, barely 2 seconds, but I felt it like a cold wind. That night, I sat on the couch with an old photo album. I ran my fingers over pictures of her as a little girl, covered in paint at the kitchen table, missing teeth as she held up a birthday card, dancing in the backyard in rain boots and a princess crown. I remembered how she used to look at me like I was the safest place on earth. I turned the page and found a picture of us at the beach. I was holding her hand, smiling into the wind, and she was laughing, eyes wide, cheeks pink, head tilted back in pure delight. I wondered when that version of us had faded. Later that evening, we sat in the same room, but miles apart. I was reading a book. She was scrolling on her phone. Emily, I said softly, can I ask you something? She did not look up. Sure. Are you happy? She paused, then shrugged. I am figuring things out. I nodded slowly. You just seem distant. She looked up then, directly at me. Her eyes were clear but cold, not angry, not warm, just empty. I am not a child anymore, she said. You do not need to worry about me like you used to. I know you are not a child, I said gently, but you are still my daughter. That was when her face shifted. Her eyes narrowed, just slightly. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I recognized that look. It was the one she used when she was holding back, holding in emotion or frustration or fear. I am tired, she said flatly. I think I am going to bed. She stood and left the room. Winston lifted his head and looked at me as if asking what had just happened. I sighed. The truth was, I did not know. But that look, it haunted me. It was not just distance. It was something else. Something buried, like she was protecting herself, or hiding something. And the more I watched her, the more I saw it, in her posture, in her silences, in the way she avoided eye contact. She was not just growing apart. She was slipping away. And I was not sure how to reach her anymore. I went to bed that night and stared at the ceiling in the dark. I thought about the way she looked at me, and I wondered what she saw. Was I still her mother, or had I become a stranger? The sun had not yet risen when I opened my eyes. The room was quiet, except for Winston's soft breathing at the foot of the bed. My thoughts felt heavy before I even lifted my head from the pillow. That familiar ache in my chest, the one that came from too many unspoken words, had returned. I went downstairs and started the coffee. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and familiar, but it did not bring me peace like it used to. I sat at the table with my mug, staring out the window, watching the slow gray light spill across the yard. I knew what I needed to do. I had to talk to her. Really talk. No more waiting. No more watching from the sidelines while my own daughter became a stranger in front of me. By the time I heard her footsteps on the stairs, I had already rehearsed what I was going to say at least 10 times in my head. My palms were damp, and my heart was beating faster than it should have. Emily entered the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound calm. "Morning," she mumbled. She went straight to the fridge, avoiding my eyes. "I made coffee," I offered. She nodded. "Thanks." She poured herself a cup, then stood by the counter, sipping it in silence. I waited a moment, then stood up and walked over to her. "Emily," I said softly. She looked at me, one brow slightly raised. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly." She blinked. "Okay." I took a deep breath. "Is there something going on that I should know about?" She froze, just for a moment. Then her expression shifted, carefully composed, blank. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean," I said, my voice still gentle. "You have been distant. You come home late. You barely speak to me anymore. I heard you on the phone the other night. You said I was starting to notice." "Notice what, Emily?" She set the cup down a little harder than necessary. "I am an adult. I have a life. You do not need to track everything I do." "I am not tracking you," I said. "I am worried. I am your mother, and I love you. If something is wrong, I want to help. But I cannot help if I do not understand what is happening." She crossed her arms. "Nothing is happening," she said, a little too quickly. "Emily," her jaw clenched, "I am not doing anything wrong." "I did not say you were," I replied. "But I know when you are hiding something. You always used to fidget with your sleeves when you lied as a child. You are doing it now." She looked down at her arm and dropped it to her side. "Why do you not trust me?" she snapped. "This is not about trust," I said quietly. "It is about love. It is about connection. I feel like I am losing you, and it hurts." Her face softened just slightly. "I am not trying to hurt you." "Then talk to me," I said. "Tell me what is really going on." She looked away, out the window. Her eyes followed the movement of the trees for a long time. I waited. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There is someone," she said. "Someone I met a while ago. And things moved fast, maybe too fast." My stomach dropped. I said nothing. "He is older," she added, eyes still on the trees. "Not just a few years, a lot older." "How much older?" I asked, my voice trembling. She hesitated. "Almost twice my age." I covered my mouth with my hand. "Emily." "I know how it sounds," she said quickly. "I know. But it is not what you think." "Is he controlling?" I asked. "Is he hurting you?" "No," she said firmly. "No. He listens to me. He respects me." I searched her face. "Then why are you hiding him from me?" She paused. "Because I knew you would react like this." I closed my eyes for a moment. "I am reacting like a mother who loves her daughter." She said nothing. "Does he know where you live?" She nodded. "Have I met him?" Her lips pressed into a line. "Once. Briefly." My eyes widened. "The man at the cafe?" She nodded slowly. I sat back, stunned. There was so much I wanted to say, so many questions I wanted to ask. But in that moment, I saw how fragile she looked. Not broken, but pulled thin, like she had been carrying something heavy for too long. "I just needed time to figure it out," she said. "And I was afraid you would not understand." I reached for her hand. "Maybe I do not understand everything yet," I said softly. "But I want to, and I will try." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw a mixture of fear, hope, and something close to relief. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know," I said, squeezing her hand. "So am I." We stood there, in the quiet of the morning, both unsure of what came next. But at least we were not pretending anymore, and maybe that was the beginning of something honest. The days after our conversation slipped by in a strange, uneasy silence. I found myself caught in a storm of thoughts that would not settle. My mind kept returning to what Emily had told me, the man, their secret meetings, her fear. I woke up in the middle of the night, heart pounding. The house was quiet, except for the gentle snoring of Winston at the foot of the bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions. Was she truly safe? Did she trust me enough to tell me everything? Or was there more she was hiding? I tried to push the thoughts away. I told myself to focus on the present. After all, Emily had said he respected her. Maybe I was overthinking. Mothers always do, they say. But the knot in my stomach tightened with every passing hour. During the day, my mind wandered. While washing dishes, I thought about her laughter from childhood, how light and carefree it had been. How had things changed so much? I remembered the warmth of her hand in mine and the promises we once shared. Was she holding on to any of that now? Work became a blur. I sat at my desk, but my thoughts pulled me elsewhere. Every ring of the phone, every email notification reminded me of the conversation. I wanted to call her, to ask more questions, but I held back. I did not want to pressure her or make her feel trapped. In the evenings, The silence between us grew heavier. We shared the same roof but lived in different worlds. I saw her glance at her phone with a mixture of hope and worry. Sometimes I imagined what messages she might be sending or reading. Were they words of love or something else? Sleep escaped me more often than not. When I finally drifted off, dreams filled with shadows and lights swirled in my mind. I saw Emily smiling, then turning away. I saw myself reaching out and her pulling back. I woke up with tears on my cheeks. One afternoon, I decided to take Winston for a walk. The fresh air was supposed to clear my mind, but my heart was too heavy. As we walked through the park, I watched young families playing and couples holding hands. A mother laughed with her child, and I felt a sharp pang of loneliness. I found a bench and sat down, letting Winston rest beside me. The trees whispered softly in the breeze. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe deeply, but the memories and worries kept flooding back. Why did it hurt so much? Was it because I felt helpless? Or because I was afraid of losing her? Probably both. When I returned home, I sat in the living room waiting for Emily. I wanted to talk again, but the words caught in my throat. How do you ask someone to open up when they are scared? How do you offer comfort when you feel so uncertain yourself? She came in later that night, tired but polite. We exchanged a few words about dinner and the dog, but it felt like walking on thin ice. I wanted to say, I am here for you, always. But I was afraid that she might pull away if I pushed too hard. Instead, I told her softly, if you ever want to talk, I am ready to listen. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. That was all. Later, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the rain fall gently. It was quiet, but inside me a storm was raging. I realized that trust is fragile. It can break easily, and it takes time to rebuild. I did not want to lose her, but I also did not want to force her away. So I made a silent promise to myself. I would wait. I would be patient. I would hold space for her, no matter how long it took. Because love is not about control or demands. It is about presence, even in the hardest moments. That night, I finally fell asleep with hope in my heart. Not certainty, but hope. The days grew shorter and colder. The chill in the air seemed to seep into my bones, mirroring the quiet ache I carried inside. Each morning I woke, I hoped for a sign, some small moment of connection, a word, a glance from Emily that would break the growing silence between us. But the house remained heavy with distance, like a weight pressing down on every corner. I spent many afternoons sitting by the window, watching the rain fall in slow, steady drops. The gray skies matched my mood, dull, tired, uncertain. I would hold a cup of tea in my hands, warm but never enough to chase away the cold feeling inside me. Winston curled up at my feet, sensing my sadness, but offering only quiet company. It was during one of these long, lonely afternoons that the tears came. They surprised me. I was not a woman who cried often. I had always been the one who stayed, strong, who held the family together. But now, alone with my thoughts, the pain that I had kept buried began to surface. I sat quietly, the rain tapping softly against the glass, and let the tears fall. They were tears for the daughter who had become a stranger. Tears for the laughter that once filled the house, but had now been replaced by silence. Tears for the years that had slipped by without us truly seeing each other. I thought about the moment Emily told me about the man. The shock had faded, but the worry remained. I wanted to understand her choices, to accept her growing independence, but the ache in my heart would not ease. Sometimes I imagined what her life was like when I was not there. Did she feel lonely too? Did she miss the closeness we once shared? Or had she already moved so far away that those memories no longer mattered? The silence between us was loud. One evening I went to bed early. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house settling. I thought about the last time we spoke honestly. It was a fragile moment, held together by hope and fear. I wondered how many more moments like that we had left. The pain was quiet but persistent. It was the ache of not knowing if things could ever return to the way they were, the sorrow of watching my daughter grow up and away from me, taking pieces of herself with her. I thought about the many small things that had changed. The way she no longer asked for help with her coat. The way she did not share her day with me at the dinner table. The way she seemed to disappear into her own world. I missed her, but I also respected her need for space. That balance was difficult to hold. I found myself reaching out in little ways, leaving her favorite snack on the kitchen counter, folding her laundry without asking, keeping the light on in the hallway late at night. Each gesture was a quiet reminder. I was still here. I still cared. I still loved her. Some days, she noticed. She would look up briefly, a soft smile touching her lips. Other times, she seemed lost in her own thoughts, distant and unreachable. I knew that this was a season of change, for both of us. One rainy afternoon, I sat on the back porch wrapped in a blanket. The world outside was wet and gray, but the garden still held hints of life. Tiny buds pushed through the damp soil, waiting for the sun. It was a small reminder that even in the darkest times, growth was possible. I allowed myself to hope, not for a quick fix, not for sudden answers, but for slow healing, for the possibility that one day Emily and I would find our way back to each other. As the rain eased and the sky began to clear, I felt a quiet strength rising inside me. It was not loud or sudden. It was a soft, steady flame that would keep me going through the hard days. Because love is patient, love is kind, and love does not give up, even when it hurts. That night, I held Winston close as I fell asleep. The quiet pain was still there, but it no longer felt so heavy. It was a part of my story now, a chapter of sorrow and waiting, but also of hope. The quiet pain I had carried for so long became harder to bear with each passing day. The silence between Emily and me was no longer just uncomfortable. It felt like a barrier growing taller and wider. I needed clarity. I needed to understand. More than anything, I needed answers. One evening, after dinner, when the house had settled into its usual quiet, I found myself standing in the doorway of the living room, where Emily sat scrolling on her phone. The soft glow from the screen lit up her face, but there was a distance in her eyes that I could not reach. I took a deep breath. I had practiced this moment in my head 100 times, wondering what words would come out. How could I ask without pushing her away? How could I speak without sounding like I was accusing? "Emily," I said gently, "can we talk?" She looked up, startled for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay." I moved to sit beside her, careful to keep my voice calm and steady. "I have been thinking a lot about what you told me. About him. About everything. I need to understand. Please, tell me the truth." Her eyes flickered with hesitation. She bit her lower lip, then whispered, "Mom, it is complicated." I reached out and took her hand in mine. "I know, but I cannot help you if I do not know." She looked down at our joined hands, squeezing mine briefly before pulling away. "I did not want to tell you because I was afraid you would be angry or disappointed." I shook my head slowly. "I am not angry. I am worried. I want to be there for you, but I cannot if you keep everything inside." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "He is someone I care about. I thought I could trust him, but things have not been what they seemed." My heart ached hearing those words. The woman who once ran into my arms for comfort was now holding back tears and hiding parts of herself. "Can you tell me what happened?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, but then nodded. "He told me he loved me. But then I found out he had been seeing someone else. I did not know if I could believe him. I felt lost." The pain in her voice made me want to hold her forever, to protect her from the hurt of the world. "I am so sorry, Emily," I said, pulling her close. "No one deserves to feel like that. You did not do anything wrong." She leaned into me, and for a moment, the space between us seemed to disappear. But even then, the weight of unspoken words lingered. "I do not know if I can trust him anymore," she whispered. "I understand," I said. "Trust is something we have to rebuild slowly, and sometimes it feels impossible." We sat in silence for a while. I wished I could take away her pain with a simple word or gesture. But sometimes, all we can do is be present. Finally, I said, "Emily, whatever you decide, I am here. You do not have to go through this alone." She looked at me, her eyes shining with gratitude and vulnerability. "Thank you, Mom." Later, that night, I lay awake thinking about our conversation. It was not the easy answer I had hoped for, but it was honest. That honesty was a beginning. I realized that sometimes we have to face uncomfortable truths to heal. I also understood that my role as a mother was not to fix everything, but to offer love and support, even when the path is unclear. The next morning, I made a decision. I would give Emily the time and space she needed, but stay close enough to catch her if she fell. I wanted her to know that no matter what, she could come home. She could come to me. Because family is not about perfection. It is about being there, through the good and the bad. That day, I felt a quiet strength growing inside me, a strength born from love, patience, and hope. The truth did not come all at once. It unfolded slowly, like a fragile flower opening to the sun. After that night when Emily and I spoke openly, I sensed a change, a small crack in the wall between us. She began to share more, little pieces, of her story that had been hidden behind silence and fear. One afternoon, she came home earlier than usual. The house smelled of rain and damp earth, and the air felt heavy. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed but resolute. I was sitting in the living room when she walked in, carrying a small bag and a restless weight in her steps. "Mom," she said softly, "there is something I need to tell you." I nodded, my heart pounding. I was ready to listen, whatever it was. She sat down beside me, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "It is about him, the man I told you about. I have not been completely honest before." I reached out and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You can tell me anything." She looked at me, eyes searching for judgment, but finding only love. He was not just seeing someone else. He was lying to me for months. I found out he was married. The words hit me like a cold wave. I had suspected some truth, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Emily's pain was deeper than I imagined. "I did not want to believe it," she continued, her voice trembling. "I thought maybe there was a reason, an explanation. But there was none. He had kept it all from me." Tears welled in her eyes, and I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her. "Oh, Emily, I am so sorry. You did not deserve that." She buried her face in my shoulder. I felt so foolish, so betrayed. I held her tightly, wishing I could erase the hurt. But I knew that healing was not about forgetting. It was about facing the truth, no matter how painful. Over the next few days, Emily and I talked more than we had in months. She shared her fears, her doubts, and the sadness that lingered like a shadow. I listened without interrupting, letting her speak her truth in her own time. One evening, she surprised me by asking, "Mom, how did you get through hard times like this?" I thought about the storms I had weathered in my own life, the losses, the disappointments, the moments when everything seemed to fall apart. "I did not do it alone," I said. "I leaned on friends, on hope, and on the belief that pain does not last forever." She nodded slowly. "Sometimes I wonder if I will ever feel whole again." "You will," I promised. "But it takes time. Healing is not a straight path. It moves forward, then back, and then forward again." Emily smiled faintly, the first real smile I had seen from her in weeks. "Thank you, Mom, for listening, for being here." That night, I felt a deep sense of connection that had been missing for so long. It was fragile and new, but it was real. The experience also made me reflect on my own life, the ways I had held onto pain and secrets, and how those things could keep us trapped if we did not face them. I realized that understanding another person's pain is a powerful step toward healing both their wounds and our own. In the days that followed, I saw Emily begin to reclaim pieces of herself that had been hidden. She laughed more often, joined me for morning coffee, and even invited Winston to sit with her on the couch. We were slowly rebuilding what had been broken, one small moment at a time. I also understood that love is not about controlling or protecting, but about trusting someone to find their own way, and being there when they need a hand to hold. That truth gave me hope for the future. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew that together we could face them. Because understanding is the first step toward forgiveness, and forgiveness is the path to freedom. The moment I decided to walk away was not sudden. It was not a dramatic scene with loud words or slamming doors. Instead, it was quiet, almost invisible to the outside world. But inside me, it was the breaking of a long-held hope, the surrender of a dream I thought I could not live without. After the painful truth about Emily's heartbreak and the betrayal she endured, I found myself caught between wanting to protect her and needing to protect myself. I had been holding on so tightly to the hope that things would heal quickly, that the wounds would close with time. But some wounds do not heal so easily. Some pain stays, lingering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise again. That evening, Emily and I sat in the living room, the space between us filled with quiet tension. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The way her shoulders were tense. The way her eyes avoided mine. I knew she needed space, but I also knew she needed to feel safe. I think we both need some time apart, I said softly. She did not respond right away. Instead, she stared out the window at the darkening sky. I am not leaving because I do not love you, I continued. I am leaving because I need to find myself again. I need to heal. And I cannot do that if I am always trying to fix what is broken. Tears filled her eyes, and I saw the conflict there, between the love she still held and the pain that kept her distant. I will be here when you are ready, I promised. Packing my bag felt like carrying a weight I could not see but could feel deeply. Every item I placed inside was a reminder of the life I was stepping away from. The routines, the familiar faces, the dreams I had once held so tightly. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. For so long, I had been caught in a cycle of trying to fix things that were not mine to fix. Now, I was giving myself permission to breathe, to live, and to rediscover who I was outside of this pain. I found a small suite in a nearby hotel. Quiet, simple, but comfortable enough. I brought Winston with me. He was my constant companion, the soft warmth in the cold nights. As I settled into the new space, I realized how much I had missed having a place to call my own, even if it was temporary. The first night was the hardest. The silence was different from the quiet at home. It was heavier, filled with memories and regrets. I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I thought about all the moments that led to this point, the laughter and tears, the arguments and embraces, the trust that was broken, and the love that remained. In that stillness, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of the pain I had been carrying. I cried quietly, not because I was weak, but because I was human. The next morning, I woke up feeling tired but somehow lighter. The pain was still there, but it no longer consumed me. Over the following days, I took small steps to rebuild my life. I went for long walks with Winston, visited the local market, and read books that reminded me of the strength inside me. I also started writing again, something I had not done in years. Words poured out of me, raw and honest. Writing became my way of processing the chaos inside and turning it into something beautiful. At times, loneliness crept in. I missed Emily deeply, and I worried about the distance growing between us. But I reminded myself that sometimes love means stepping back so that healing can happen. I sent Emily messages, simple and kind. Thinking of you. Hope you are. Well, I am here. I did not expect immediate answers. I just wanted her to know she was not alone. One afternoon, I received a call from her. Her voice was soft but steady. "Mom, thank you for giving me space. I needed it." Hearing her say those words made my heart swell. It was a reminder that sometimes walking away is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. I realized that walking away was not giving up. It was an act of courage, a way to honor both our needs and to find strength in vulnerability. As I looked out the window of my small suite, Winston curled up beside me. I understood that this journey was far from over, but I was ready to face it, with hope, with love, and with the quiet power of knowing I could stand on my own. Walking away had given me space, but it did not take the pain with it. I soon discovered that leaving a situation, even a difficult one, does not erase the ache inside. Instead, the pain stays. It lingers like a shadow, following me quietly, wherever I went. In my small suite, I often found myself sitting alone, the silence pressing down like a heavy blanket. I missed the familiar sounds of home, the way Emily's laughter would sometimes fill the rooms, even when we were not close. I missed the way Winston would nudge my hand for attention. I missed the comfort of routine, even if that routine had been filled with difficult moments. But most of all, I missed feeling whole. Every morning, I woke up hoping that the heaviness would lift, that the pain would soften like morning fog burning away under the sun. Yet, day after day, the ache stayed. It was a quiet, steady presence, not sharp or sudden, but deep and relentless. Some moments, I caught myself holding my breath, waiting for the hurt to disappear. Other times, I let the tears come, allowing myself to grieve the loss of the family I thought I had and the life I had imagined. I came to understand that pain was not just about the past. It was about the present, too. The space between who I was and who I wanted to be. It was about the trust that was broken and the hope that was still fragile inside me. One evening, I sat by the window, watching the rain trace slow paths down the glass. The world outside was blurred and gray. Winston lay quietly on the floor beside me, sensing my sadness. I thought about the conversations I had with Emily, the moments of honesty and the silences that spoke louder than words. I wondered if she felt the pain as deeply as I did, or if she was hiding it behind a wall of her own. I realized that pain is not something you can simply fix or forget. It is something you carry with you, like a scar. Sometimes the scar itches, sometimes it burns, but it is a reminder of what you have survived. During those long, quiet nights, I began to understand that the pain was part of my story, but it would not define me. I could choose how I responded to it, whether I let it keep me trapped, or whether I let it be the soil from which new strength could grow. I started to write again, filling pages with my feelings. The sadness, the anger, the confusion, and the hope. Writing was like breathing for my soul. It helped me make sense of the chaos and gave me a place to put the pain instead of carrying it alone inside me. Some days were harder than others. I would wake up feeling fragile and unsure, but I learned to be gentle with myself, to accept that healing is not a straight line. It moves forward slowly, sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. One afternoon, a friend visited me. Sarah was someone I trusted deeply, She did not offer quick fixes or easy advice. Instead, she listened. She sat with me in the silence and held space for my feelings. "I know the pain feels endless now," she said softly. "But it will change. It will become different. Not less real, but less heavy." Her words stayed with me. I realized that healing does not mean forgetting the pain. It means learning to live with it in a new way. I also thought about forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. I carried guilt and regret for things I had done or not done. I wished I could take back moments when I was not patient or understanding. But holding on to blame only made the pain heavier. Slowly, I began to say to myself, "I forgive you." Not to erase the past, but to free myself from its weight. The days in the suite became a time of quiet transformation. The pain was still there, but I was learning to walk with it instead of being crushed by it. Sometimes Winston would nudge me, reminding me that I was not alone. Sometimes I would catch a glimpse of hope in the smallest things. A bird singing. Outside the window, a stranger's kind smile, the warmth of sunlight on my face. The pain stayed, but so did the promise of healing. I understood now that life would not be the same as before. I was not the same person. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. Some days the past came to visit me like a familiar song, soft, bittersweet, and impossible to ignore. I found myself caught in memories that were both comforting and painful. I missed the past. I missed the way things used to be, even if those days were not perfect. The mornings were the hardest. I would wake up early, the quietness of the suite pressing around me, and my mind would drift back to the home I left behind. I remembered Emily's laughter echoing through the hallways, the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen, and the way Winston would sit patiently by the door, waiting for us to start our day. I missed the routine, the simple daily moments that once felt ordinary, but now seem precious beyond words. I remembered the small traditions we had. Sunday mornings at the park, where Emily would race ahead and then turn back to wave at me with a bright smile. Evenings when we cooked together, sharing stories and jokes as we prepared dinner. Bedtime stories, where I held her close and told her tales of brave girls and kind hearts. Those memories were like old photographs, frozen moments of joy and love. They reminded me of what was lost and what could never be fully recovered. I often wondered if Emily missed those times too. Did she think about the way we used to be? Or had those memories faded, replaced by the pain and distance that had grown between us? Missing the past was not just about nostalgia. It was about mourning the future I had imagined. The celebrations, the milestones, the quiet moments of togetherness that I hoped would never end. I found myself reaching for the phone, wanting to call her, to hear her voice and share a memory. But then I hesitated. I was afraid that reaching out might push her further away, or remind her of things she wanted to forget. Instead, I wrote letters I never sent. I poured my heart onto the pages, telling her about the days I missed, the nights I cried, and the hope I still carried deep inside me. Writing these letters became a way to hold on to the past without being trapped by it. It was a bridge between what was and what could be. One afternoon, I sat by the window watching the rain fall softly against the glass. The world outside was gray and still, and I felt the weight of loneliness pressing in. I thought about the photo albums tucked away in a box at home. Pictures of birthdays, family trips, and holidays. Faces full of smiles and happiness. I wished I could reach through the years and touch those moments, hold them close once more. But I knew that living in the past would not bring peace. It could only keep me frozen in a place where healing was impossible. Slowly, I began to understand that missing the past was natural. It was part of grief, but I could not let it define my present. I started to create new routines in my quiet, sweet. I cooked meals that reminded me of home, played music that brought me comfort, and took long walks with Winston through unfamiliar streets. Each step felt like a small act of courage, a way to build a new life while honoring the old. Also reached out to old friends, people who knew me before the pain. Their voices were a lifeline, reminding me that I was not alone and that the past was part of a larger story still unfolding. One evening, I found myself looking through a small box of keepsakes I had brought with me. Inside were a few letters, from Emily when she was younger, a necklace she had given me, and a small drawing she made in kindergarten. Holding those treasures, I felt a wave of love and sadness. I realized that even though the past was gone, it lived inside me, in my heart, in my memories, and in the quiet hope that one day we might find a way back to each other. Missing the past was not a sign of weakness. It was proof that I had loved deeply and truly, and love, I knew, could be the strongest force of all. In the middle of that lonely week, when the weight of my thoughts seemed too much to carry alone, I made a decision. I reached out to Sarah. She had been my friend for many years, a steady, calm presence in my life, someone who did not judge or rush to fix things, but who listened with kindness and patience. I called her one morning, my voice trembling slightly as I asked if she could come over. She did not hesitate. Within an hour, she was at my door, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers and a warm smile. We sat together in the quiet suite, the sunlight streaming through the windows, making dust particles dance like tiny stars. Winston curled up at my feet, sensing the shift in my mood. I poured out my heart to Sarah. I told her about the pain that stayed with me, the nights filled with tears, the memories that both comforted and broke me. I spoke of my fears, that Emily and I might never find our way back to each other, that the silence between us would become permanent. Sarah listened quietly, never interrupting, her eyes full of understanding. When I paused, she reached out and took my hand in hers. "I am so sorry you are hurting," she said gently. "You have carried so much on your own. Sometimes sharing the burden can make it a little lighter." Her words felt like a balm. For the first time in weeks, I did not feel quite so alone. We talked for hours, sharing stories of our own struggles and triumphs. Sarah told me about her own family challenges, how she learned to set boundaries and find strength in vulnerability. "It is okay to feel lost," she said. "But remember, you are not lost. You are in the middle of a journey, and journeys are not always straight or easy." Her perspective gave me hope. I realized that healing was not about forgetting or pretending everything was okay. It was about facing the truth with courage and letting myself be supported by others. After Sarah left, I felt lighter. The pain was still there, but it was softer somehow, softened by connection and understanding. In the days that followed, I made an effort to reach out more. I called my sister, who had always been a source of quiet strength. We talked about the past and the present, about family and forgiveness. She reminded me that I was not alone in this. I also joined a small support group online, where women shared their stories of pain and healing. Reading their words, I felt less isolated. Their courage inspired me to keep moving forward. One evening, Sarah and I met again for tea. We sat in a cozy cafe, the warm light casting soft shadows around us. "I want you to know," she said, "that it is okay to take your time. Healing does not have a deadline. Be gentle with yourself." Her words stayed with me long after we parted. I began to see that healing was a process, one that required patience, self-compassion, and the willingness to lean on others. Slowly, I started to feel a small shift inside. The heaviness in my chest was not gone, but it was less suffocating. I found moments of peace. In a quiet morning walk, in Winston's gentle companionship, in the simple act of breathing deeply. Talking to Sarah reminded me that I was not defined by my pain. I was a woman who had loved deeply, who had faced betrayal and loss, and who was finding a way to stand again. The journey was far from over, but I was no longer walking it alone. The decision to say goodbye was not sudden. It grew inside me like a slow-burning ember, small at first, almost unnoticed, but steadily growing warmer, demanding attention. I knew deep down that some things could not be fixed by hope or conversation. Some wounds needed space to heal. Some chapters had to close, even when it hurt. I spent many quiet evenings alone in the suite, staring out the window as the sky shifted from gold to navy blue. The city lights flickered in the distance, but inside me, the darkness felt heavy and real. I thought about Emily, her distance, her silence, and the walls between us. I thought about all the times I had tried to reach her, only to be met with coldness or avoidance. It was time to say goodbye. Not forever, perhaps, but for now. To protect myself, to find peace, to reclaim my own heart. I wrote a letter. I chose my words carefully. Every sentence carrying the weight of my love and the ache of our distance. Dear Emily, I want you to know that I love you. That will never change. But I have to say goodbye. At least for a while. I need to take care of myself. I need to heal. I hope one day we can find our way back to each other. Until then, please know that I am thinking of you, and I am wishing you all the happiness in the world. With love, Mom. I read the letter over and over, my heart aching with every word. Then, I folded it gently and placed it on the small table by the door. The next day, I called Emily. My hands trembled as I dialed her number, hoping she would answer. She did not. I left a message, my voice steady, but soft. Emily, I am sending you a letter. When you are ready, please read it. I love you. Days passed without a reply. The silence was painful, but it was also a boundary, a space I needed to create for myself. Saying goodbye did not mean forgetting. It did not mean giving up. It meant honoring my own heart and needs, even when they were hard to face. I began to focus on my own life again. I filled my days with small joys, reading, gardening, walking Winston through the park. I reconnected with friends who lifted my spirits and reminded me of who I was beyond the pain. I allowed myself to feel every emotion, the sadness, the loneliness, the hope. I cried when I needed to, and I smiled when I found moments of happiness. One afternoon, as I sat by the window, a gentle breeze lifted the curtains. I thought about Emily, about the past and the future. I realized that saying goodbye was not the end. It was a new beginning, a chance to grow stronger, to find peace, and to prepare for whatever came next. The journey was still unfolding, and I was ready to face it with an open heart. Being alone is different from feeling lonely. I discovered this truth slowly, almost reluctantly, as the days passed in quiet solitude. The suite I had booked was spacious and bright, filled with soft light and gentle shadows. Winston, my faithful dog, was my constant companion, his calm presence a comfort in the stillness. At first, the silence was overwhelming. The absence of Emily's voice, the lack of the usual family noise, made the walls feel like they were closing in. I missed the chatter, the small arguments, even the chaos of everyday life. Without them, the world seemed emptier, colder. But with time, I began to understand what being alone truly meant. It was not about emptiness. It was about space. Space to breathe, to think, to feel, without interruption or expectation. I woke up each morning without the rush or the tension I had grown used to. I made my own coffee, slowly, savoring the aroma and warmth. I dressed not for anyone, but myself, wearing clothes that made me feel comfortable and free. I took long walks with Winston through quiet streets and green parks. The air was fresh, and the sun warmed my face. Sometimes, I stopped to watch children playing, couples holding hands, strangers going about their day. I felt like an observer in a world that had moved on without me, but I also felt a growing sense of peace. In the silence, I heard my own thoughts more clearly. I noticed the little things I had forgotten to appreciate, the sound of leaves rustling in the wind, the way sunlight filtered through the trees, the gentle rhythm of Winston's breathing as he slept beside me. Being alone gave me the chance to reconnect with myself. I started journaling, writing down my feelings, hopes, and fears. Sometimes the words flowed easily. Other times they were hard to find. But each time I wrote, I felt a little lighter. I also began to explore things I had set aside, reading books that inspired me, trying new recipes, listening to music that stirred my soul. I allowed myself to dream again, imagining a future where I was whole and happy. Of course, the loneliness still came at times. There were moments in the evening when the quiet felt too heavy, and tears came unbidden. I missed Emily fiercely, missed the mother-daughter bond that had once been so strong. But even in those moments, I reminded myself that being alone was a gift, a necessary step on the path to healing. I learned to sit with my pain without trying to fix it or run from it. I discovered that strength was not about never feeling sad, but about allowing myself to feel deeply and then choosing to move forward anyway. Sometimes I talked to Winston as if he understood every word. His big eyes looked up at me with trust and love, and I felt a connection that was simple and true. I also found comfort in small rituals, lighting a candle in the evening, practicing gentle stretches, breathing deeply when anxiety crept in. These acts grounded me, reminding me that I was still here, still alive, still capable of love. Being alone now was not about isolation. It was about self-discovery. It was about learning to be my own friend, my own protector, my own source of comfort. And as the days turned into weeks, I realized that I was not just surviving. I was beginning to live again. I was learning that being alone was not the end of the story, but the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope, courage, and the promise of healing, time has a quiet way of changing us, even when we do not notice. As the days passed in my little suite, something deep inside began to shift. I was not the same woman who had walked through the door weeks ago, weighed down by pain and uncertainty. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and more certain. I spent many mornings looking out the window, watching the world move on while I took time to heal. It was a slow process, but with each sunrise, I felt a little more grounded. I noticed small changes, how I held myself, how I spoke to myself, how I viewed my past and future. The hurt was still there, but it no longer defined me. It was a part of my story, but not the whole story. I had learned to carry it with grace rather than letting it crush me. I realized that I had grown in ways I had never expected. The betrayal and distance from Emily had forced me to look inside, to face uncomfortable truths and confront my own fears. It had pushed me to be honest with myself about what I wanted, what I needed, and what I deserved. I had discovered a strength I did not know I had. Not the kind of strength that is loud and visible, but the quiet kind. The strength to sit with pain, to forgive, to hope, and to choose myself. I started to see myself through new eyes. No longer just a mother hurt by her daughter's rejection, but a woman who had survived heartbreak and was rebuilding her life. A woman who was learning to love herself again. The small routines I had created, journaling, walking with Winston, talking to friends, became acts of empowerment. They reminded me that I was in control of my own story. I also noticed a change in how I related to others. I was more patient, more understanding, and more willing to set boundaries. I no longer tolerated disrespect or silence from those I loved. I knew my worth and was learning to protect it. There were moments when the past still called to me, memories of laughter, of closeness, of simpler times. But instead of longing or regret, these memories became reminders of what I had been, through, and how far I had come. I began to dream again, not just about family, but about myself. I thought about what I wanted to do with my time, how I wanted to live, and who I wanted to be. These dreams were not grand or dramatic, but they were real and important. One afternoon, as I sat with Winston in the park, I caught my reflection in a nearby window. I saw a woman with soft lines on her face, eyes that held both sorrow and strength, and a calm smile. That woman was me. Changed, yes, but whole. I whispered to myself, I am not the same. I am better. This change was not without its challenges. Sometimes old habits and fears resurfaced. Sometimes I felt the sting of loneliness or doubt. But I met these moments with kindness and resilience. I understood that growth is not a straight line. It is a journey with ups and downs, setbacks and breakthroughs. And I was committed to walking that path, no matter how difficult. I also found new joy in small things. A cup of tea shared with a friend, the feel of warm sunlight on my skin, Winston's happy wagging tail. These moments reminded me that life could still be beautiful, even after pain. I was learning to embrace all parts of myself, the wounded and the healed, the fearful and the brave, the past and the future. I was becoming whole again. And as I looked ahead, I felt a quiet hope. A hope that whatever came next, I would face it with strength, grace, and the deep knowledge that I was enough. The days had been long and often heavy, but something quietly shifted one evening. that made me notice a small light within myself. It was not a dramatic moment, no sudden revelation or grand event. Instead, it was a gentle spark, like the soft glow of a candle flickering in the dark. That evening, I was sitting on the balcony of the suite, wrapped in a warm blanket. Winston lay curled at my feet, content and peaceful. The city stretched out before me, its lights twinkling like stars on earth. The air was cool but comforting, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers. For a long time, I had been wrapped in a cloak of sadness and uncertainty. The pain of distance from Emily, the quiet days alone, and the ache of unanswered questions had made my heart feel heavy. But tonight, in this simple moment, I felt something different. A small hope. I thought about the journey I had been on. The moments of despair, the tears, the anger, and the loneliness. I remembered how lost I had felt, how unsure of myself and my future. But now, here I was, still standing, still breathing, still hoping. That small light inside me was fragile, but it was real. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always a spark of hope waiting to grow. I reached for my journal and began to write, trying to capture the feeling before it slipped away. Tonight, I feel a small light inside me. It is quiet but strong. It reminds me that I am not alone, that I am healing, that I can find joy again, even if it is small. This light is a gift, a sign that I am moving forward, that I am ready to face whatever comes next. As I wrote, I felt the weight in my chest lift just a little. The light grew brighter, warming my heart and filling me with a gentle strength. The next day, I took Winston to the park. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sounds of children laughing and birds singing. I watched a mother playing with her young son, their faces full of joy and love. It was a simple scene, but it touched something deep inside me. I realized that happiness does not have to be grand or perfect. It can be found in small moments, a smile, a kind word, a shared laugh. These small lights, when gathered together, can create a path out of darkness. I thought about Emily and the distance between us. I still did not have all the answers, and the pain was still there. But I also knew that holding on to hope was important. Hope for healing, for reconnection, for understanding. That evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and purple, I sat once more on the balcony. Winston rested his head on my lap, and I stroked his soft fur. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the calm wash over me. I whispered to myself, "This small light is mine. I will nurture it. I will let it grow." The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I believed that light would guide me through. Beginning again is never easy. It means stepping into the unknown, leaving behind what is familiar, even if that familiar is painful. But one morning, I woke up with a quiet resolve. I was ready to take the next step, to rebuild my life, piece by piece, and to find peace within myself. The sun was just rising, casting a soft golden light through the window of my suite. Winston was already awake, his tail thumping gently against the floor. I brewed a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city slowly come to life, the streets filled with people rushing to work, children going to school, and neighbors greeting each other with smiles and waves. For a long time, I had felt stuck, like a ship caught in a fog, unable to find its way. But now I was ready to sail again, to navigate my own course with courage and hope. I started with small things. I made my bed every morning with care, turning a simple task into a ritual of order and calm. I planned my days, setting gentle goals for myself, not too many, just enough to keep moving forward. Self-care became a priority. I took long baths with lavender-scented oils, something I had not done in years. I cooked healthy meals, paying attention to flavors and textures. I found joy in the simple act of nourishing my body. Winston and I began exploring new places, quiet trails in the nearby woods, cozy cafes where the baristas greeted us by name, and little bookstores filled with the comforting smell of paper and ink. These outings reminded me that the world still held beauty and possibility. One afternoon, I signed up for a yoga class. I had never done yoga before, but something about it called to me. The slow, deliberate movements helped me connect with my body and mind. It was a way to let go of tension and invite peace. The teacher's gentle voice guided us through breathing exercises and stretches. I felt my muscles relax, my mind quiet. For a moment, I was fully present. No worries, no fears, just here and now. After class, I sat in the quiet studio, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was a small step, but it mattered. It was the beginning of a new habit, a new way to care for myself. I also began reaching out to friends I had not seen in a long time. Some were surprised to hear from me, but most were happy to reconnect. We met for coffee or walked in the park, sharing stories and laughter. These moments reminded me that I was not alone, that even when family relationships were difficult, friendships could offer support and comfort. I wrote letters to Emily, letters I did not send, at least not yet. In them, I poured out my feelings, the hurt, the hope, the desire to rebuild what was broken. Writing helped me sort through my emotions and clarify what I wanted to say when the time was right. One morning, as I sat with my tea and journal, I realized something important. Beginning again was not about erasing the past. It was about carrying the past with me, learning from it, and moving forward with strength. I was not the woman I had been before, naive or uncertain. I was wiser now, shaped by pain and healing. And that wisdom was a gift. The next day, I took a deep breath and called Emily. My heart pounded as the phone rang, but I was calm. When she answered, I simply said, "Hello, Emily. I have been thinking about you." There was silence on the other end, then a quiet, "Hello, Mom." It was a small moment, but it was the start of something new. As the weeks passed, I continued, building my new life. I found joy in routines and freedom in choices. I embraced the power of beginning again, not as a burden, but as a promise to myself. I learned that it is never too late to start over, that healing takes time, but it is possible, and that within each ending lies the seed of a new beginning. This was my beginning, quiet, uncertain, but full of hope, and I was ready. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Just as I was beginning to feel settled in my new routines, to trust my own strength and find peace in my days, he tried to come back. It was a quiet afternoon when I received the message. The name on the screen made my heart skip, a mixture of old pain and curiosity rushing through me. I had not spoken to him in months. Our conversations had been few and filled with silence, or worse, tension and misunderstanding. The message was simple, almost cautious. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to close the door completely and walk away. But another part, the part that still hoped, still ached for resolution, told me to reply. I wrote back, keeping my words neutral. When and where? We agreed to meet at a small cafe halfway between our homes. I arrived early, nerves twisting in my stomach like a storm. I wondered what he would say, what he wanted, and why now. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The years, the distance and the weight of our past struggles had changed him. His eyes held a mixture of regret and hope, but also uncertainty. He greeted me with a quiet, "Hello," and we sat down. For a moment, silence stretched between us. The noise of the cafe faded into the background, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Then he spoke. "I have been thinking a lot," he said slowly. "About us, about everything. I know I made mistakes. I was not the husband you deserved. I was selfish, and I hurt you." His words were honest, and I felt the sting of old wounds. But I also saw something new, a man who was trying to be better, to make amends. "I am sorry," he continued. "I do not expect everything to be fixed. I just want a chance to talk, to explain. If you do not want to see me again, I will understand." I looked into his eyes and saw the vulnerability there. It reminded me of the man I had once loved, the man I had hoped could change. But I was different now, too. I was stronger, more aware of my own worth. I had spent months healing and learning to trust myself again. "I appreciate your honesty," I said quietly, "but I need to know why you want to come back now. What has changed?" He sighed deeply. I realized how much I took for granted. I was caught up in my own problems and forgot what mattered most. Losing you was the hardest thing I ever faced. His words touched a part of me, but I was cautious. I had been hurt before, and I could not ignore the past. "I am glad you understand," I said. "But healing is not simple. It takes time, and trust is not easy to rebuild." He nodded. "I know. I am willing to do whatever it takes. I want to try, not just for me, but for us." We talked for hours, sharing memories, fears, and hopes. It was a conversation full of pauses and unspoken emotions. Sometimes, it felt like we were speaking two different languages, trying to find common ground. At the end of the day, I felt a mix of emotions: hope, fear, and uncertainty. Part of me wanted to believe in new beginnings, to hold on to the possibility of forgiveness and love. But another part of me was wary, protecting itself from pain. I realized that his return was not a simple fix. It was a challenge, a test of my growth and boundaries. Over the next days, he reached out again, asking if we could meet or talk. Each time, I took my time to respond, thinking carefully about what I needed and wanted. I told myself to be patient, to listen to my heart and mind equally. I reminded myself that choosing to open the door again did not mean forgetting the past. It meant being brave enough to face it. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the rain, I reflected on how much I had changed. I was no longer the woman who depended on him for happiness. I had learned to find joy within myself, to appreciate my own company, and to trust my instincts. His return was not a threat to that growth, but an opportunity. An opportunity to practice the strength I had gained, to decide what was best for me now. I realized that I did not have to rush. I could take this one step at a time, setting boundaries that felt right. And if the light he wanted to bring back was genuine, then maybe there was a chance. If not, I was ready to walk away with my head held high. That night, I wrote in my journal, "He has come back. The past is not erased, but the future is still mine to shape. I will be cautious, but I will not close my heart completely. I am stronger now. I am wiser, and I will choose myself first." The small light inside me flickered again, a reminder that even in uncertainty, there is hope. When he came back into my life, I realized quickly that I was not the same woman who had once loved him so deeply. I was different now. The pain, the distance, the months of healing, they had changed me. They had made me stronger, clearer, and more certain about who I was and what I deserved. I remember the first time we met after that long silence. It was a quiet cafe, the kind of place where people speak softly, and the smell of fresh coffee fills the air. He sat across from me, looking hopeful yet uncertain. I felt a mixture of old feelings, love, anger, sadness, but also something new. A sense of calm and control I had not felt before. In the past, I might have been swept away by his words, by his promises and apologies. But this time, I listened, carefully. I paid attention not just to what he said, but to what he did. I watched his eyes, his hands, his posture. I noticed when he hesitated or avoided questions. I trusted my instincts. I saw that he was trying. He wanted to make things right. But I also knew that change is not simple or fast. It takes time, effort, and patience. Most importantly, it requires respect. Respect for my feelings, my boundaries, and my growth. I started setting clear limits. When he tried to push too hard, I said no. When he wanted to talk about the past too soon, I gently told him I was not ready. When he needed space, I offered it without guilt. I realized that taking care of myself was the most important thing. Evening after a long conversation, I looked at him and said, "I am different now. I have learned to stand on my own. I have found strength inside me that I did not know I had." He nodded slowly. "I can see that, and I respect it." Those words meant a lot. It showed me that he was not just trying to fix the past, but was willing to accept me as I am now. I started to notice small changes in myself, too. I was more patient. I was less afraid of silence or uncertainty. I could sit with my feelings without trying to run away. I could say no without feeling guilty. I could ask for what I needed. These were not easy lessons. They came from months of pain, reflection, and hard work, but they were worth it. Sometimes, when I looked in the mirror, I saw the woman I used to be, a woman who had been hurt and lost. But now, I also saw the woman I had become, a woman who had survived, grown, and chosen herself. This new me was not perfect. I still had fears and doubts. I still missed parts of the past. But I was more aware of my value and my power. I started making decisions based on what was best for me, not just what others expected. I said yes to things that made me happy, and no to things that drained my energy. I spent more time with friends who lifted me up and less time with those who brought negativity. I explored new hobbies and interests that gave me joy. I took care of my health, my mind, and my spirit. One day, he asked me, "Do you think we can have a future together?" I took a deep breath and answered honestly, "I do not know yet, but I am willing to try, as long as we both respect the person I am now." That was a turning point. It was not a promise of forever, but a promise of honesty and respect. I realized that being different was not a bad thing. It was a gift. It meant I had grown beyond the pain and was ready to face whatever came next with courage. I also understood that choosing myself first was not selfish. It was necessary. Only by loving and respecting myself could I truly open my heart to others. I thought about the long journey I had traveled, the nights of tears, the days of silence, the moments of doubt. And I felt proud. Proud of how far I had come. Proud of the woman I had become. I knew that the road ahead might still be difficult. There could be challenges and setbacks. But I was ready to meet them with strength, grace, and a clear sense of who I was. As I sat with these thoughts, I smiled quietly to myself. This was not just about a relationship or a person. It was about my life, my story, and my future. I was different now. And that difference was my power. There comes a moment in life when the choices we make define who we truly are. For me, that moment arrived quietly but with great power. After so much pain, confusion, and longing, I finally understood that the most important choice I could make was to choose myself. Choosing myself did not mean I was closing the door on love or forgiveness. It meant I was finally putting my own heart, my own needs, and my own peace above everything else. It was a decision rooted in respect, strength, and hope. I remember waking up one morning feeling different. There was a calmness inside me, a stillness that said, "You are enough. You have what you need." It was as if all the noise and chaos of the past had settled, and I could hear my own voice clearly for the first time in a long time. For years, I had tried to fix everything around me. I tried to fix relationships, to fix misunderstandings, to fix the broken pieces of my life. But no matter how hard I tried, I often forgot the one thing I needed to fix: myself. This choice, to put myself first, was not easy. It felt selfish at times. It felt uncomfortable. But deep inside, I knew it was necessary. Because how could I give love or trust to others if I did not first love and trust myself? I began setting firm boundaries. I learned to say no without guilt. I learned to recognize when something or someone was draining my energy and to step away before it hurt me more. I made plans for my own happiness, not just for the sake of others. I took time to nurture my passions. I returned to painting, something I had loved but neglected for years. I spent quiet mornings reading books that inspired me. I took long walks in the park, letting the fresh air fill my lungs and calm my mind. Choosing myself also meant forgiving myself. Forgiving the mistakes I made, the times I trusted too easily, the times I doubted my worth. Forgiveness was a gentle gift I gave to my own heart. It did not erase the past, but it allowed me to move forward with kindness and grace. 1 afternoon, I sat by the window, watching the sunlight dance on the leaves outside. I thought about the future. uncertain but full of possibility. I realized that choosing myself was not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new one. I could choose joy. I could choose peace. I could choose to live fully and freely. No longer held back by fear or pain. When he tried to come back, I knew I had changed. I could still care for him, still wish him well. But I also knew that my first loyalty was to myself. I choose myself. I told him gently but firmly, I need to protect my heart. I need to live in a way that honors who I am now. He looked surprised but nodded. He understood that this was not a rejection, but a declaration of strength. Choosing myself was also about accepting that some things were not meant to be. That not every story has a perfect ending. That sometimes the greatest love we can find is the love we give to ourselves. I will never forget the feeling of freedom that came with that choice. It was like stepping out into sunlight after a long winter. It was like breathing deeply after holding my breath for too long. I was no longer a prisoner of my past or my fears. I was free to write my own story, to live my own truth. This choice has not been easy every day. Some days, old doubts creep back in. Some days, loneliness whispers in the quiet moments. But every time, I remind myself, I chose me, and that choice is my power. I share this with you, dear listener, because I know that sometimes choosing yourself feels impossible. It feels selfish or scary. But it is the most loving and courageous thing you can do. When you choose yourself, you honor your story, your pain, and your dreams. You open the door to healing, growth, and true happiness. So if you are listening now, remember this. You are worthy, you are strong, and you deserve to choose yourself every single day. I chose myself, and I will never regret that choice. There is something truly magical about a new day. It carries with it the promise of fresh beginnings, new hopes, and endless possibilities. For me, that new day felt like a gift, one I had earned through pain, struggle, and the deep work of healing. It was the day when I smiled again, not because I forgot the past, but because I survived it. The morning began quietly. The soft light of dawn filtered through the curtains, painting my room in gentle shades of gold. I woke up feeling different. Not just because it was morning, but because something inside me had shifted. I felt lighter, calmer, and more at peace than I had in a very long time. I took a deep breath and looked out the window. The world was waking up too. Birds singing, leaves rustling, a cool breeze carrying the scent of fresh earth. It reminded me that life goes on, that every day is an opportunity to start again. For many months, I had been trapped in memories and fears, the hurt of betrayal, the confusion of broken trust, the loneliness of emotional distance. These feelings had wrapped around me like a thick fog. But today, the fog was lifting. I smiled softly, thinking about how far I had come. The nights spent crying alone, the quiet moments of reflection, the conversations with friends who listened without judgment, the small steps I took to care for myself. All of these moments led me here, to this new day. I got out of bed slowly, savoring the calm. I dressed in clothes that made me feel comfortable and confident. I brewed a cup of tea and sat by the kitchen window, watching the sunlight dance on the leaves outside. I thought about the past, but I did not dwell on it. Instead, I honored it. I remembered the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the love that still lived in my heart. That day, I decided to do something I had not done in a long time. I called my closest friends and invited them over. I wanted to share this new, beginning with people who cared, who supported me, and who had stood by me through the darkest times. When they arrived, the house was filled with warmth and laughter. We talked about everything: our dreams, our challenges, our plans for the future. I felt connected again, seen again, and loved again. One friend looked at me and said, "You seem different, stronger, happier." I smiled and replied, "I am, because I survived, and I chose to keep going." Later that afternoon, I took a long walk in the park. The sun was high, the air warm but not too hot. I felt the earth beneath my feet and the wind on my face. It was a simple moment, but it filled me with joy. As I walked, I thought about what it meant to truly move forward. It was not about forgetting or pretending everything was perfect. It was about accepting the past, embracing the present, and looking toward the future with hope. I realized that this new day was not just a date on the calendar. It was a symbol of my journey, a reminder that no matter how hard life gets, there is always a chance to begin again. When I returned home, I sat quietly for a while. I closed my eyes and let gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for the lessons, the pain, the healing, and the love. I thought about you, the listener, and the journey you might be on. If you are facing your own struggles, know this: a new day is waiting for you too. It might feel far away right now, but it is there. And when it comes, it will bring light, peace, and the chance to smile again. That night, as I prepared for bed, I felt a deep sense of calm. The weight I had carried for so long was lighter. The future felt open and full of promise. I whispered a quiet thank you to myself, for the courage to keep going, for the choice to heal, and for the strength to embrace this new day. As I drifted off to sleep, I held on to that feeling, the feeling of survival, the feeling of hope, the feeling of a fresh start. Tomorrow was another new day, and I was ready to live it fully, with an open heart and a peaceful mind. Because sometimes surviving is the greatest victory of all. Saying thank you feels simple, yet it holds a deep power. It is more than just polite words. It is an act of recognition and gratitude. For me, saying thank you became a turning point in my journey. It was the moment I truly acknowledged all the people, moments, and experiences that helped me find myself again. For many years, I lived in a place of pain and confusion. I focused so much on what was wrong, on what I had lost, that I forgot to see the gifts hidden within the struggle. But as I healed, I realized that even the hardest moments had something to teach me, and the people who stood by me, even quietly, had given me strength beyond words. I began writing thank you letters, not to send, but for myself. I wrote to my friends who listened patiently, even when I repeated the same stories over and over. I wrote to my daughter, from the place of understanding and hope, even though we were still rebuilding trust. I wrote to myself for the courage to keep moving forward, even on the darkest days. Saying thank you became a daily practice. Every morning, I thought about one thing or one person to be grateful for. Sometimes it was small: a cup of tea, a kind word from a stranger, the warmth of sunlight on my face. Other times it was something bigger: the love of a friend, the chance to start again, the strength I found inside. This simple habit changed how I saw the world. It shifted my focus from what was missing to what was present, from pain to healing, from loneliness to connection. One afternoon, I sat in the park, watching children play and couples walk hand in hand. The world felt full of life and possibility. I pulled out my notebook and wrote down a list of thank yous. Thank you for the mornings that remind me to breathe. Thank you for the friends who never gave up on me. Thank you for the tears that taught me how to feel. Thank you for the silence that helped me hear my own voice. Thank you for the chance to start over. Writing these words made me feel lighter. It was like opening a door inside my heart and letting the light in. Later that week, I called an old friend I had not spoken to in months. We talked about everything: our struggles, our dreams, and the small moments that gave us hope. I told her how grateful I was for her presence in my life. She smiled and said, "Thank you for saying that. Sometimes we forget how much words can heal." Saying thank you was healing for both of us. At home, I began to notice the little things I could thank myself for being patient, for choosing kindness, for learning to say no, for taking time to rest. These were not small victories. They were acts of self-love. One evening, after a long day, I looked in the mirror and said softly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." The reflection looked back at me with tired but hopeful eyes. It was a quiet moment, but it carried so much meaning. I also learned to say thank you for the difficult lessons, for the pain that pushed me to grow, for the moments of doubt that taught me resilience, for the endings that made space for new beginnings. Gratitude became my way of making peace with the past. It was not about forgetting the hurt, but about honoring the journey that brought me here. I want to share this with you, dear listener, because I know that sometimes life feels overwhelming. The challenges can seem too big, the pain too deep. But even in those moments, there is something to be thankful for. Even the smallest light can guide you through the darkness. If you are struggling, try this simple act. Take a moment to say thank you. Thank yourself for trying. Thank someone who has been kind. Thank life for the breath you take right now. It might feel strange at first, but gratitude is like a seed. When you plant it, it grows into something beautiful. I say thank you to you for listening to my story. Thank you for walking with me through the hard times and the hopeful moments. Your presence means more than words can say. And most of all, I say thank you to myself for the courage to face the truth, for the strength to heal, and for the choice to live fully. Saying thank you is not the end of the journey. It is a reminder that we are never alone, that every step forward is a victory, and that kindness, especially kindness to ourselves, is the greatest gift we can give. So, from my heart to yours, thank you. May you find reasons to say thank you every day. May gratitude fill your heart with peace and joy. And may you always remember that you are worthy of love, kindness, and happiness. Forgiveness is a quiet and powerful act. It is not easy, It does not happen overnight. For a long time I carried a heavy burden, a weight made of guilt, regret, and self-blame. I blamed myself for the ways things had fallen apart in my family. I blamed myself for not being enough, for not seeing the signs, for not stopping the pain. Each day, that burden grew heavier. It settled deep inside my chest, making it hard to breathe. I thought that if I punished myself enough, maybe somehow things would be different. Maybe the past would change. Maybe the pain would go away. But forgiveness is not about changing the past. It is about freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back. It is about looking at your own heart with kindness, understanding, and acceptance. The journey to forgive myself began slowly. It started with small steps. One day, I caught myself thinking, I did the best I could with what I knew. It was a simple thought, but it shook me. Could it be true? I began to listen more carefully to my inner voice, the part of me that had been quiet for so long. It whispered words of comfort. You are human. You made mistakes. That is okay. I found myself writing in a journal, pouring out my feelings without judgment. I wrote letters to myself, letters full of compassion and hope. I told myself that it was time to stop carrying the blame alone, that it was time to heal. One evening I sat quietly in my favorite chair. The room was calm, the lights soft and warm. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I imagined holding my younger self, the woman who had faced so much and still kept going. I forgive you, I whispered. I forgive you for the pain you did not mean to cause. I forgive you for the times you felt lost and scared. I forgive you for everything. Tears came, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release. The chains that had held me for so long began to loosen. Forgiving myself did not mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It meant accepting that I am imperfect and that I am worthy of love and kindness anyway. It meant letting go of the harsh voices inside my head and choosing to be gentle with myself. The process was not easy. There were days when the old feelings returned, guilt, anger, shame. But each time I reminded myself to be patient, to breathe, to return to forgiveness. I also learned that forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. Some days it feels close and real. Other days, it feels far away. But every step forward matters. I talked to a therapist who helped me understand that forgiving myself was an act of strength, not weakness. She said, when you forgive yourself, you take back your power. You stop giving it to the pain and the past. This idea stayed with me. It became a light in the darkness. I began to see forgiveness as a gift I gave myself, a way to heal, to grow, and to live fully. I want to share this with you, dear listener, because I know how hard it can be to forgive yourself. Maybe you feel guilty for mistakes, for words said or left unsaid, for dreams lost or broken. Please know that you are not alone, and you deserve forgiveness from others and from yourself. Try this. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Picture yourself as a child or younger version of you. Imagine holding that person in your arms with love and kindness. Then say quietly, I forgive you. I love you. It might feel strange or difficult at first. That is okay. Forgiveness is a process. It takes time. But each time you try, you take a step toward healing. I forgive myself every day now. It is a choice I make to honor my journey, to honor my heart, to honor the woman I am becoming. Forgiveness opened the door to freedom. Freedom from shame. Freedom from blame. Freedom to live with hope and joy. When I look in the mirror now, I see a woman who has made mistakes, but who has also made it through. I see strength. I see courage. I see love. And I say to that woman, you are enough. You are worthy. You are forgiven. Freedom is a feeling I once thought belonged only to others. For a long time, I believed that I was trapped by my past, by the mistakes I had made, and by the expectations that weighed heavily on my shoulders. But now, as I sit here, reflecting on my journey, I realize that freedom is not a place or a moment in time. Freedom is a state of mind. Freedom is a choice. It began slowly, after forgiving myself, after saying thank you to life and to those who helped me. Something inside me shifted. The walls I had built around my heart started to crumble. I felt lighter, as if a heavy fog had lifted from my soul. One morning, I woke up early. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky with soft pinks and golds. I opened the back door and stepped outside barefoot, feeling the cool grass beneath my feet. The air was fresh and filled with the scent of blooming flowers. In that simple moment, I felt something new, a deep, quiet joy. I was free. Being barefoot felt strange at first. I was used to shoes, to protecting myself from the world. But now I wanted to feel the earth directly under me. It was a symbol of my new beginning. Grounded, connected, alive, I walked slowly through the garden, taking in every sound, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, the gentle hum of the breeze. I felt the sun warming my face and the earth steady beneath me. I was here. I was present. This freedom was not about escaping problems or forgetting the past. It was about embracing life fully, the good and the bad, the joy and the pain. It was about choosing to live with an open heart, without fear holding me back. I began to dance, not a formal dance, but a simple movement of my body expressing the happiness I felt inside. I spun slowly, arms outstretched, laughing softly to myself. The feeling of freedom moved through me like a river, flowing from my toes to the tips of my fingers. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. I want to tell you, dear listener, that freedom is possible for you too. It does not matter what your past looks like. It does not matter the mistakes you think you made. Freedom is waiting inside you, ready to be discovered. You might be carrying heavy burdens, just like I did. You might feel trapped by sadness, fear, or regret. But the moment you choose to let go, just a little, you begin to open the door to freedom. Freedom is about small acts. It is about breathing deeply when life feels overwhelming. It is about saying no when something does not feel right. It is about allowing yourself to feel, to heal, to grow. I remember one day, feeling stuck in old patterns of thinking. I felt like I was still trapped in a cage built by my own doubts. But then, I closed my eyes and imagined the cage doors opening wide. I pictured myself stepping out into the sunlight, free to choose my path. That image stayed with me. Whenever I felt stuck, I returned to that vision. It reminded me that freedom is always within reach, if only I believe it. I also learned that freedom means forgiving others, not because they always deserve it, but because holding on to anger and resentment only traps us further. Forgiving is a gift we give ourselves, a way to lighten our hearts and move forward. Walking barefoot in my garden, dancing in the morning light, forgiving myself and others. These became my symbols of freedom. They reminded me that life is a beautiful, complicated journey, and that I am not alone on this path. Sometimes I still face challenges. Sometimes the old fears whisper in my ear. But now, I have a choice. I can listen to those fears, or I can listen to the voice of freedom inside me. And most days, I choose freedom. I want you to remember this. Freedom is not about perfection. It is about progress. It is about choosing to love yourself and your life, even when things are not perfect. If you feel lost, try this. Find a quiet place. Take off your shoes if you can. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Take a deep breath. Imagine the weight of your worries lifting away. Imagine yourself free. Free to be who you are. Free to live your truth. Freedom is your birthright. It is waiting for you in every breath, every step, every choice. From my heart to yours, I say, you are free. You deserve to be free. And today is the day to begin living that freedom. Knowing who I am has been one of the most difficult, yet most rewarding discoveries of my life. It was not always clear to me. For many years, I allowed others' opinions, expectations, and judgments to shape my sense of self. I tried to fit into roles that did not feel true to my heart. I looked for approval in places where it was not meant to be found. But now, after so much pain, reflection, and healing, I can say with quiet confidence, I know who I am. It is a feeling that comes from deep within, a steady, calm understanding that I am enough, just as I am. I am not defined by my mistakes, my fears, or even my regrets. I am defined by my heart, my values, and the journey I have traveled. One morning, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, I thought about the woman I have become. She is not perfect. She is still learning, but she is strong, kind, and true. She has faced betrayal and loss, but she has also found forgiveness and freedom. I remembered the many moments of doubt, the nights when I wondered if I would ever find peace. And yet here I am, standing tall, ready to face whatever comes. Next, knowing who I am means accepting all parts of myself, the light and the shadow. It means embracing my vulnerabilities as well as my strengths. It means understanding that my worth is not tied to what others think or say, but to the simple truth that I am human. I have learned to listen to my inner voice, the quiet guide that speaks when the world is noisy. It tells me when I need rest, when I need courage, and when I need to love myself a little more. This inner voice helped me set boundaries with people who no longer serve my peace. It helped me say no when I needed to protect my heart. It helped me find joy in small moments and gratitude for the lessons life has given me. I remember a day when I looked in the mirror and saw not just my reflection, but my story. I saw a woman who had been broken, but was healing. I saw someone who had been lost, but was finding her way. I saw a soul that was growing stronger with every step. Knowing who I am also means recognizing my dreams and hopes. It means giving myself permission to dream again, to set goals that excite me, and to pursue happiness on my own terms. I have discovered that my identity is not fixed or rigid. It is fluid, growing, and changing, just like life itself. I am not afraid to evolve, to try new things, or to change direction if my heart calls for it. Sometimes people ask me how I found this sense of self. I tell them it is a journey, one filled with moments of reflection, self-compassion, and courage. It requires patience and honesty. It means looking inward, even when it is uncomfortable. I want to share this with you, dear listener, because I know how hard it can be to feel lost or unsure. Maybe you have been trying to be someone you are not. Maybe you feel pulled in many directions, unsure of where you belong. Please know that you are not alone, and that the path to knowing yourself is possible. It begins with small steps, listening to your feelings, noticing what brings you peace, and allowing yourself to be authentic. Try this. Take a moment today to sit quietly. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Ask yourself, who am I? Do not rush for an answer. Let feelings come and go like waves. Notice what feels true inside. You may not have a clear answer right away. That is okay. The journey is about exploration, not perfection. It is about learning to love and accept yourself, one day at a time. I am grateful for the woman I am today. She is resilient, hopeful, and whole. She is a reflection of every trial and triumph she has faced. She is me. And I want you to know that you can find your own truth too. You can discover the beautiful, complex person you were always meant to be. When I say, I know who I am, it is not a boast. It is a quiet statement of peace and acceptance. It is a promise to myself to live honestly and bravely, to honor my story, my heart, and my dreams. From my heart to yours, I say, know yourself, trust yourself, and always remember, you are enough. As I reach the end of my story, I want to speak directly to you, dear listener. This is more than just a story about me. It is a story about life, about struggle, and about the quiet strength that lives inside each of us. It is a message of hope, healing, and the power of love, especially the love we must give ourselves. If you have been listening all this time, thank you. Thank you for sharing these moments with me, for walking beside me through the pain and the joy. I hope that in some way, my story has touched your heart, or given you a small light in dark times. Life is not easy. It is messy, complicated, and often unfair. We all face challenges that test our courage and shake our confidence. Sometimes it feels like the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us. Sometimes we lose our way and forget who we are. But I want you to remember this. You are never alone. No matter what you are facing, there is always hope. There is always a way to find peace and strength, even if it takes time. One of the most important lessons I have learned is the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about excusing bad behavior or forgetting pain. It is about freeing yourself from the chains of anger and resentment. It is about choosing peace for your own heart. I forgave myself for the mistakes I made. I forgave those who hurt me. And in doing so, I found freedom. freedom to heal, freedom to grow, freedom to love again. I also want to remind you of the importance of self-love. Loving yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. It is the foundation on which everything else is built. When you love yourself, you protect your heart. You set healthy boundaries. You give yourself permission to be happy. If you do not love yourself first, it is hard to accept love from others. You might settle for less than you deserve or stay in situations that hurt you. But when you love yourself, you become your own strongest supporter and friend. Remember to be patient with yourself. Healing is not a straight path. It is a journey with ups and downs. There will be good days and bad days. There will be moments of doubt, but keep moving forward, even if it is just one small step at a time. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to friends, family, or professionals if you need support. You do not have to carry your burdens alone. There is strength in seeking connection and understanding. I want to encourage you to find moments of joy in your everyday life. Sometimes joy can be as simple as a warm cup of tea, a walk in the sunshine, or a kind word from a stranger. These small moments remind us that life can be beautiful, even in the hardest times. And finally, I want to say this. Your story matters. Your pain matters. Your happiness matters. You have a unique light to share with the world, a light that no one else can give. Do not hide it. Let it shine. If you ever feel lost or unsure, come back to this message. Remember the woman who found her strength after pain. Remember that you too have that strength inside you. You are capable of overcoming. You are capable of love. You are capable of freedom. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And if this story has touched your heart, please subscribe. Because tomorrow, I have saved something truly special. Just for you, may your heart be full of peace, your mind be calm, and your spirit be free. With love and hope, Laura.